Part 1. When your body changes and you don't feel like you anymore. Eleanor had always been a morning person. For decades, she rose with the sun, made coffee, brushed her short gray hair, and took pride in starting her day with clarity. But something changed. One morning, she stared into the mirror and paused. Her face hadn't just aged. It felt like someone else's. Her hands, once steady and purposeful, now trembled just enough to make pouring tea feel like surgery. The little things were starting to slip away. A forgotten word here, a missed name there. She laughed it off in front of others. But alone. It scared her. She didn't recognize this body. It moved slower. It tired quicker. And her mind, once her proudest asset, now felt foggy, like trying to read through steamed glass. Eleanor wasn't sick, she wasn't unwell, but something deeper was happening, something no doctor could fully diagnose. It was grief. Not the kind we speak of at funerals, but the quiet, invisible grief of losing versions of yourself. The grief of no longer being the mother who carried grocery bags in both arms. The woman who danced barefoot in the kitchen. The friend who remembered every birthday. In this silence, a painful question crept in. If I'm not who I was, then who am I now? And that's where we begin, because this isn't just Eleanor's story. It's the quiet question echoing in the hearts of millions. Aging isn't simply about growing older. It's about the slow, aching transformation of identity. But here's the truth. Transformation isn't always a loss. In fact, it may be the doorway to something new, something deeper. In the next part, we'll walk beside Eleanor as she faces the subtle losses of her aging body and discovers what Viktor Frankl meant when he said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Part 2. The invisible losses of aging and what they're trying to teach us. Eleanor never thought she'd grieve putting on her shoes, but lately, bending over to tie the laces brought a dull ache in her hips. So she started wearing slip-ons. Small change, right? Yet something about it felt bigger, like each little adaptation whispered, "You're not who you used to be." There were other things too. She no longer drove at night. Crowded places made her anxious. She forgot why she walked into a room. Each loss was tiny, almost invisible. But together, they piled up like snow on a quiet roof. You don't hear it happen, until one day, the weight is too much to ignore. This is a kind of grief that doesn't get spoken of. It doesn't come with sympathy cards or casseroles, but it's real. Eleanor felt it in her bones. This slow fading of the self she had built over 67 years. But here's where something shifted. Instead of pushing the grief away, she began to notice it. She gave it a name, and in doing so, she stopped fighting it. She realized, aging is not just a series of losses, it's also a series of invitations, an invitation to slow down, to pay attention, to ask different questions. Not how do I stay the same, but rather, who am I becoming now? This is where Viktor Frankl's wisdom enters like a quiet light. Frankl taught us that meaning is not found in avoiding suffering, but in how we respond to it. Eleanor couldn't change the way her body was aging, but she could change the way she saw it. She began to ask, what if this isn't the end of something, but the beginning of a deeper self? In Part 3, we'll explore how Eleanor's small choices, like starting a journal or reaching out to someone new, became acts of quiet defiance against despair, and how meaning doesn't retire when we do. Part 3, Small Acts, Big Shifts, how Eleanor reclaimed her days. It started with a notebook, nothing fancy, just a small spiral-bound pad from the drugstore. Eleanor wrote one sentence in it each morning. At first, it was practical. I didn't sleep well, or I made soup today. But slowly, something changed. The words became windows. She wrote, I miss driving with the windows down. The magnolia tree bloomed today, and I almost missed it. I feel lonely, but I'm still here. The notebook became more than paper. It became a mirror, a place where Eleanor's inner voice, long drowned out by routine and responsibility, finally had room to speak. She didn't call it journaling or healing. She just showed up. And that's where the magic is, in the showing up. One day she sent a letter, an actual letter to her sister, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. No agenda, just a memory and a thank you. Another morning, she asked her neighbor's grandson to show her how to use the voice recorder on her phone. She wanted to capture stories, not for anyone else, just to remember, to preserve. Eleanor wasn't chasing youth. She was cultivating presence. Viktor Frankl believed that meaning often arises from the smallest, most personal choices, not in grand gestures, but in quiet defiance. The defiance of saying, today still matters. The courage to say, I can create, even now. The wisdom to know that purpose isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Each time Eleanor opened her notebook, she was planting seeds, not of nostalgia, but of renewal. In the next part, we'll explore how Eleanor's world began to shift, not because her circumstances changed, but because she changed her relationship with time, loss, and meaning. Part 4. The Shift, from surviving time to living it. Eleanor didn't wake up one morning transformed. There was no cinematic moment, no breakthrough in the mirror. It was gentler than that, more subtle. One morning she reached for her cane and paused, not from pain, but from awareness. She realized she no longer resented the slowness. Her pace had become deliberate. In a world that rushes, she had started listening. She wasn't getting better. She was growing deeper. Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And that's exactly what Eleanor had begun to do. She couldn't rewind the clock. She couldn't bring back her late husband, or the busy kitchen full of children, or the sharpness of her memory. But she could choose her attitude toward all of it. She began to talk differently, not in grand speeches, but in tone, in presence. When the neighbor's daughter visited, Eleanor looked her in the eyes, listened with her whole body. That was her offering. Her presence was her gift. She started noticing beauty again, sunlight falling through her window, the softness of warm socks, the quiet pride of making her bed. She had stopped surviving time and started living it, not in the way society defines productivity, but in the way Frankl described, by finding meaning, even in limitation. Her loneliness, it became a space where compassion lived. Her slower pace, a rhythm that allowed her to truly see. This wasn't denial of aging, it was reverence for life. Even as her world became smaller, her inner world expanded. In the next part, we'll see how Eleanor began sharing this shift with others, and how one person's quiet change can ripple across generations. Part 5. The Ripple. How one inner shift transforms others. Eleanor never set out to inspire anyone. She wasn't giving TED Talks or writing memoirs. She was simply becoming whole. But something strange happened. People noticed. Her granddaughter, who once rushed in and out during visits, now lingered a little longer. Not because Eleanor told better stories, but because she listened better. Her quiet made others feel heard. The nurse who visited weekly started opening up about her own life. Not to be comforted, but because Eleanor didn't judge. She had stopped trying to fix people and started simply being with them. Viktor Frankl believed that the search for meaning is not taught, it's caught. And that's what Eleanor had become, a living presence of meaning. Not through grand advice, but through the dignity in how she folded laundry. The care in how she asked, "And how are you, really?" The calm with which she accepted her limits, not as defeat, but as part of her path. Her home changed, too. It wasn't decorated with ambition, but with stillness. A book open beside the kettle, a handwritten note by the door, a warmth that said, "You matter here." Without realizing it, Eleanor had become a quiet elder for her community. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that reminds others of who they are. A neighbor once said, "There's something different about you lately." Eleanor smiled and replied, "I just stopped pretending time was my enemy." And that shift, from resistance to reverence, had ripple effects that couldn't be measured, but they could be felt. In the next part, we'll explore how this quiet legacy shapes the meaning of growing old, not as an ending, but as a sacred unfolding. Part 6. The Sacred Unfolding. Why aging isn't the end. Eleanor once feared that aging meant disappearing, that with every new ache, every forgotten word, she was slowly becoming less. But now, in the quiet of her days, she realized something else. She wasn't fading, she was unfolding. Viktor Frankl taught that meaning doesn't depend on youth, strength, or success. It depends on our attitude toward the unchangeable, toward suffering, limitation, and mortality. He called this our last freedom, the freedom to choose how we respond. Eleanor could no longer hike, travel, or host large family dinners, but she could choose how she met each moment. And in that choice, she found dignity. Her days became slower, yes, but they also became more sacred. Each cup of tea, each phone call, each breeze through the open window, all of it became a quiet prayer. She stopped asking, "What can I still do?" and began asking, "What can I still mean?" And the answer surprised her. She could mean peace. She could mean memory. She could mean wisdom that didn't need to shout. Aging, she saw now, was not a falling away, but a peeling back, a return to essence, to soul. To be old was not to be useless. It was to become something truer, someone who could hold space for others, not by fixing, but simply by being. Eleanor's story reminds us, you are not a burden. You are not broken. You are becoming essential, and that may be the most powerful thing you ever become. If Eleanor's journey touched something in you, you're not alone. Aging isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of a deeper one. Here at The Inner Elder, we explore the quiet power, purpose, and beauty that can emerge later in life. If you want to walk this path of meaning with us, don't forget to subscribe. Your presence here matters, and so do you.